Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to the Conscious Club. Welcome back to you. Welcome back to me. This is the first episode that I'm recording after my Croatia trip. And I really took my time. I've really been taking my time getting back into my creative work because, as I expected, this trip was so transformational for me in such an embodied way. And my trip lasted from leaving my home to getting back home. It was around 17 to 20 days or something. And so for 17 to 20 days, I was living completely out of my routines and my regular daily structures, which obviously made it so that over those 20 days, I adapted to a new way of being in my body, a new way of existing in the world. And then when I landed back home, the process has been around integrating that newer way of being with my existing ways of being. And I was going to use the word figuring out how to fit it together, but it's not really a conceptual process that's happening. It's it's taking time, but I'm not using my mind to really figure out how to integrate things. It's just understanding that the settling back in process is just taking its time, and it's it's affecting me mostly when it comes to the reason I still know that I'm in that settling in process mode is because my creative part of my brain feels less active than usual. I'm just very in the present at all times, and my creative brain it's hard for me to access that aspect of my mind, my creativity, because I don't feel the solid ground yet to land on and to create from. But there's quite a few projects that are in the ether that I'm collecting the preliminary resources and information from. I'm working on launching a new Substack publication, so I'm still going to have Golden Age streams, but there's going to be another Substack publication that I will be feeding into as well. That one is going to be around, actually, I might as well just share it here for those who are listening. That one's going to be around some processing that I feel called to do of the religion that I grew up under and the spiritual traditions that I was birthed into, which is Islam. And something that I really want to focus on is blending my interest in the feminine principle, or so. You know how in spirituality people often talk about polarity. There's the concept of yin and yang. Yin is the feminine principle, yang is the masculine principle. The feminine principle, understanding it, decoding it, embodying it as a woman here on earth, has been of such a great interest to me. And this new Substack publication that I don't really have a name around yet is going to be around merging that interest about the feminine principle and Islam. So I just want to know, because so much of the traumas that I experienced in this life, so much of the tension has been kind of around these rules and expectations about what it is to be a woman, rules and expectations coming from cultural values, so South Asian, Pakistani, Indian, but then also religious, quote unquote, religious expectations, which I highly suspect are cultural as well. So something that I really want to uncover is I want to do more of like a deep dive on the literature myself, like when it comes to like Islamic texts, like the original Islamic texts, but then also books and interpretations written by analysts and researchers. But I want to, like, that's kind of the direction I'm going in, and then I want to report on my observations and findings and stuff in my Substack, so that anyone who's been following my journey for the past since like 2017 basically, this is kind of feels like the next iteration of my journey, and I'm really excited to offer it and to share it with people who have been here since the beginning, but also people who are still now finding me from those older YouTube channels of being disowned and, just all this stuff. Like, this feels like the next iteration of that. So first thing I'm doing is I did some just online research, seeing what I could find in the space around the feminine principle in Islam. And I found this book called My Soul is a Woman, My Soul is a Woman, The Feminine in Islam, by a writer named Anne-Marie Schimmel. And she's like a German writer. So I always find it intriguing to read about religious research from those who aren't obviously biased, because I feel like a lot of Muslim people who are born Muslim, they can often write from a tone of defensiveness, and that's not really what I want to engage with the energy of. I just want a as unbiased as possible kind of objective analysis of this space, of this domain, and I want to learn. I want to see what's up. Just something that's really calling me forth. It kind of feels like a really big endeavor, because so far I know that I want to have a Substack, but I don't yet know what my first entry is going to be about. Like, nothing's really mapped out. I'm just kind of blindly exploring the space right now, and I feel like, the Fool in the tarot archetypes, just like the very first archetype of the set, where you don't really know what you're doing or what you're going into, but there's this playful curiosity present. That's where I am right now. But yeah, femininity, the feminine principle, that was the main theme that was present during my Croatia trip. And just living with my friend Anya, who has also been such a great mentor for me. Her and I have such a great relationship where I feel mentored by her, but I don't feel that level of like hierarchy sometimes that I felt with other mentors. It's like we're friends first, but just through her embodiment and through her experiences, I've just learned so much from her. And then going and living with her was just a deeper education of everything that I had already been exploring. And so, yeah, I was surprised actually that I felt that inclination to record this episode today, because I still didn't fully feel ready to come out into the world again. But I was like, okay, but I don't know, like there is still something that wanted me to talk and express. So here I am. The trip was, I feel pressured to talk about the trip, because I feel like there's so many people being like, "What? How was your trip? What did you do?" Blah, blah, blah. But it's not really about, like, the trip was, the shifts that occurred are so energetic, and it's hard for me to talk about the trip without going deep into all of the energetics of it, which honestly at this current time I don't have the words to communicate. Partly like the thing that has changed most in my life is, remember how I did a podcast episode like a few months ago called Slow Living Lifestyle? it just seems like the teachings and the understandings that I was speaking about in that episode have just anchored in on a more somatic level, and I just feel so like at peace and in my element, and I don't feel I feel like for so much of my working life I felt plagued by this sense of urgency, and that is just completely gone right now. Sometimes I'll absorb it from people around me, but it's very easy for me to notice now when what is mine and what is coming from someone else, like it still annoys me sometimes when the thing coming from someone else is in my field, because I'm like, I just now have to transmute this and it's so annoying. But I also know that I'm still absorbing it because there's still parts of me that need to process those energies. So, but yeah, that urgency feeling is gone. Other than that, there's been even more of a dissolving of obligatory action taking. So I've done even more of a clearing of, I've been supported by reality and by the circumstances of my reality. Upon coming back to on my trip, I've been even more supported to slash more obligatory responsibilities that I had agreed to, that I didn't actually want to do, but that I was doing because I felt some sort of pressure, like financial pressure or societal pressure, whatever. I feel like something came through in like the last few days of my trip that changed the financial reality of my life, and that has just allowed me to really sink deeper into just going with the flow, and the flexibility piece. And it's going to be interesting as I ground deeper and deeper back into my life to pick back up on the conversations we've been having in this space around structure and flexibility and the balance between the masculine and the feminine energies in an individual. But I'm definitely, it seems like as life is moving forward, I am definitely moving away from a 50-50 model of like 50% masculine dominant energy and 50% feminine, and moving into a more feminine dominant energy embodiment, which is something that I've always wanted. I just didn't feel like I would be able to do that in my life based on the demands of my life. But things are like have really been shifting as I've been, like calling in the desire, and really claiming the desire to understand the feminine principle and to embody it as a woman. And what it, just all these things are happening that are allowing me to do what I've always wanted to do. So that's really, really cool. I'm just going to see if there's anything else that I feel called to share. Yeah, so because there's no urgency, there's no like, I feel a desire to create, but because this is like the first time I'm creating anything really, like really sitting down to create anything and to express. But because there's been a lack of urgency and a lack of pressure to do things, it's allowing my timelines to be very fluid. With like, when I'm just thinking about like, okay, well, I want to post a Substack that I spoke to you about just earlier in this episode, but I don't have an expectation or structure of when I want to post it or publish it. And that feels so good to me. Like that feels so natural to me. Like it feels so freeing for me to do that and to really give myself as much space as I actually need to bring this creation to the world, without rushing it, which I have done so many times in the past because I felt like I had to rush it. But yeah, it's just I'm in a very different orientation to creating than I was. In my other space, Overflow, the mystery school, For those who haven't heard yet, I've also shifted that to a gratuity-based model. So I was operating it from a subscription-based model where Overflow the Mystery School, you had to pay a monthly subscription to be part of the space. But after coming back from my trip, I switched it to a gratuity-based model, which is there's no monthly subscription that you have to pay to be part of the space. The way it's going to work is once a month, I'm just going to send an invitation in the group chat to anyone who wants to donate or donate a gratuity based on and the number that you send is based on how much value that you personally feel you've gained from the space that month. So that also felt very freeing for me to do because that removes even more obligation / should energy from my role as a facilitator, because I can also then fully show up from Overflow. Whereas if there's some months where I am more internal, for example, this past month, I don't have to overexert myself to ensure that everyone's getting an equal exchange for how much money they've paid for that month's subscription. Instead, I can just really listen to my intuitive nudges and follow my own flow and bring through the transmissions I want to come through that space in their most organic way possible. So that's really the theme that is really, really landing as I come back into my life after this trip is just, it's around trusting the natural unfolding of things and trusting, and just everything is set up for me to be able to really explore this way of being, that way of being, which is just fully trusting how things land and the timing of divine timing. And, I have my intentions and I have things that I want to do. And, but there's even less of me forcing myself. I've been talking about not forcing things for a while, but it's hard to not force when you don't feel fully supported by life to do so. And now I think it's because I've been devoted to it regardless, trying to not force as much as possible. And that over time, reality is just arranging itself to allow me to continue removing even more force energy from my life. And you know what I mean by force energy? Just pushing, that instead of letting things just kind of stream and flow naturally, feeling like I have to push things forward or move things before their actual time, and I don't have to do that as much anymore. So yeah, that's the vibe now. I think that's good for this episode. Thank you for whoever is tuning in today. I just want to send you so much love. It's just so cool to be able to connect in this way. And if you have any reflections or anything that you want to say in response to this podcast, message me. If you're in Overflow, which is now gratuity based, so you can join that as well. If you're in Overflow, send me a message on Telegram. If you're not in Overflow and you don't feel like joining Overflow, you can send me a DM on Instagram. But yeah, that's another thing that's really landing, is cultivating more intimate community. Just there's this understanding that I have less of a focus on being more of a public figure, and I feel really good about inner community and intimate community, and pouring my energy and efforts into people that get me on a deep level. And that's not everyone, and for me to, what I was doing for so much of my life, because I thought that was the only way to create community, was I would blast my presence on social media apps and things, which was fine, and there was a season for that. But as I'm getting older, I'm just realizing that there's such an energetic difference between transmitting to everyone and anyone, so like on transmitting on Instagram or on YouTube, versus transmitting in like a closed group where everyone who's in there is fully consenting to receiving what you're offering. There's just such an energetic difference, and being able to be received is such an important metric. I don't know why that word came up, but that feels good for me to use. That feels like an important thing for me moving forward, is putting more of my focus on, like, I'm never going to stop expressing because I love expressing and I have so many things to say. But at the same time, I no longer feel the need to express to anybody and everybody. So I foresee that I will probably moving forward be more quieter on the public front. So quieter on Instagram and Substack, and Substack depending, right? Because Substack also has like a inner community paid space, which I haven't activated yet, but I might for some things. But I can just see myself desiring to be a little bit more, not even private, but just instead of blasting my stuff to everyone, blasting my stuff to people in Overflow or in any other groups that I'm a part of, or in my intimate relationships or my one-on-one connections. And speaking of one-on-one, something else that I'm bringing through this summer, I'm opening up my one-on-one coaching program again. It's been closed since 2021 because I didn't know what I wanted to mentor on, but the concept is really landing now, especially with how much work I've done within Overflow and the energy of Overflow, and this concept of like, how can women live deeply nourished lives. I have still yet to really consolidate all my thoughts of the themes that I want to explore with people in my one-on-one space, but I just wanted to announce that here, that will be coming up soon. And, if you're listening to this and you feel called, I also don't know about pricing yet or anything like that. So if you're listening to this and there's a part of you that's like, oh, that would feel really fun to do to have a one-on-one experience with a reach out to me too, because perhaps this is meant to be like a co-created program. Perhaps I don't have all the details landed yet because I'm waiting for the person that I will be in one-on-one relationship with in this way to create it with them, like in collaboration with them. So yeah, that is all. Thank you for listening. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon.